Hello, hello. Welcome to Onwards with Dr. Danielle and back to the Win-Win Woman Network. I am Kate Stacom, your guest host for today. I have the pleasure of being here with our host, Dr. Danielle Clark, to talk about a glimpse into complex PTSD and a soul-centered approach. So we're here to talk a little bit about Danielle's journey living with complex PTSD and her healing. And I'm just so thrilled to have the opportunity to be here with you and to hear just about your light. You're such a shining light. So I'm thrilled to hold this space for you, Danielle. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you. And I love the role reversal. Like,
Me too.
and thank you for letting me come in as a guest and having you hold this beautiful space for such a sacred conversation.
I can't. Let's dive right in. So when we're talking about when we were talking about coming forward today, one thing that really sat with me was that I feel often people hear of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, yet they don't understand or they don't often hear about complex PTSD, right? So from a clinician standpoint, I thought I would give a little bit of the nuances around those, and then we can jump in and talk about your journey. How does that sound to you?
Love that.
Okay, excellent. So when we're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, this is oftentimes associated way back when with the military. In fact, most of the modern day studies was around the military and people coming back from war and their bodies responding different, them being, quite frankly, different people, right? Their souls, and as psychic mediums, we know their souls were fractured. Their souls were a little bit more separate, a lot different coming back from war. And so there's a lot of studies into understanding why, right? What happened? What is this, right? What is this thing that these soldiers are coming back from war about? And that's when we decided, to name this post-traumatic stress disorder. And the understanding around this is that the body is never, it changes, right? Our neurons change, our biochemicals, we change according to a traumatic event. Okay. And so let's take war, all of the things, all of the violence that happens in war. And coming off of that, we sense threats. Okay, so our body is a lot more hyper aroused. Our fight or flight is activated, oftentimes with reminders of the event that happened, but not always. We might avoid thoughts, feelings, or emotions associated, thoughts, feelings, or places associated with the event. So there's the sense of I am not safe anywhere around any of these things. We re-experience it. Okay, so that's when you hear the word triggers. So if something happens, there's oftentimes a visual reminder, there's a body cue, people might tense up. So again, the fight, flight, or freeze will happen as a result of encountering a reminder or a trigger. Okay, now when we talk about complex PTSD, and some of you might have heard like big T, little t's. Okay. And so the big T's are the big events. The little t's are not the small events, but it's the accumulation of events, of significant events over time that impacts our soul, impacts our nervous system, and impacts who we are, right? And how we feel safe in the world. So the ways that complex PTSD might show up are in interpersonal difficulties, right? Trust. A lot of times this happens during childhood when we're just developing our sense of self and our safety here in the world, right? So interpersonal challenges, lack of trust there, negative self-concept, who are we in this world? How are we processing our emotions? That sense of threat is just the same, right? So we might be a little more hyper aroused around all sensory experiences because we don't feel safe. We don't know what to expect. And we might avoid things that remind us of the experiences that we did experience in our childhood. The one last thing too that I often see with C-PTSD versus PTSD is re-experiencing. And often we use the term repetition compulsion in the mental health world, but basically this idea that I'm going to master this. I did not have the chance to control this. So I'm going to take this on and I'm going to replay this over. I have chills as I say this, just as confirmation, right? That is such a common experience. And so if you're listening to this and it's like, why am I doing this thing over and over and over again, right? Why am I re-experiencing this? You're trying to master it, right? You're trying to take that on and take control in a time when you did not have any. So I'm giving you all of that content up front to just talk about the nuances between the two, but also those similarities of feeling unsafe in your bodies and in the world. So Danielle, please, I'm thrilled to have you here to talk about your healing journey. Tell me a little bit about the parts of your story that you would like us to hear to better understand complex PTSD.
Absolutely. And before I do, thank you for that beautiful understanding to all as it relates to the differences and similarities between PTSD and complex PTSD. And I hope your introduction helps people reflect potentially on their lived experiences if they have had some control issues, if you will, if they have had some interesting things happen that they haven't been able to put a finger on. I was probably in my early 30s when I was introduced to the term complex PTSD. And it gave me a lot of peace and clarity into some of the things that I do or I don't do as it relates to my childhood. I was motivated to come on today wanting to share a little bit about the complex PTSD in my world today and how I navigate it. But before I can do that, important to help people understand a little bit about the becoming of it. So I am the daughter of an alcoholic dad and at the time a mentally unwell mom who was oftentimes disengaged, neglectful and abusive in her own ways, on lots of medication. So sometimes she's just not cognitively there. And so having two parents that weren't grounded often and who had so many of their own issues that they weren't focusing on me caused a lot of uncertainty and disruption in my life. They were not happily partnered. So there was also a lot of chaos, a lot of fighting, a lot of negative talk. One would talk bad about the other and vice versa. And so I always felt like I was on eggshells. I always felt like, okay, like at a very young age, I'm strategizing. Dad's drunk, don't want to get him mad. What's the right thing to do or not to do? Mom and dad are fighting. I hear something being thrown. Do I go in and try to save the day or am I going to make that worse, right? And so it's all of this hyper, I'm on. And like you said, you know, we can call that the little t, if you will, although it doesn't feel like the little t, right? But the accumulation of that. So that's not just a bad night in my household. That's the usual, right? That's the usual. And so my fight, flight, or freeze system is activated, is on. And especially with mom and dad, right? These rules that society tells us we are to trust them. They are safe. They are here for your best and highest good. And not that they weren't in their heart, but some of their actions were not for my best and highest good, right? Again, there was some abuse and neglect in the house. So that living and reliving shaped what I navigate today, which is that complex PTSD, and really want to talk more about like how it shows up today in the healing journey, because I think there's an unfair stigma. I should rephrase. I know there's an unfair stigma as it relates to mental health and complex PTSD, and wanted to highlight some of the triumphs and some of the ways that it actually makes me who I am. I don't identify with the thought process that I have a disorder or an illness. It's a piece of me, and it's done some beauty for me as well.
That's so, thank you. Thank you for sharing, and knowing you, it's no surprise. And you wouldn't be where you are without that, right? One of your favorite things to say is, the lights, it's the lights in the crack, right? The lights. What is it?
It's the cracks in your heart. I love that. And I love you. It's the cracks in your heart that let the light shine through. Yes.
I'm like, I can't get it out. I can't. But that's your essence. And so I just so appreciate that. When you're thinking about your own soul-centered living and your own life path and calling, what are the ways in which you feel your experience with complex PTSD has brought that forward, has let that shine?
Yeah. So, it really, on my hard days, because with CP, with the CPTSD, just like anything, maybe I'll use arthritis, right? I have good days and bad days. Some days there's a flare up, right? Some days I feel like I'm in my 20s again. It's not every day's the same. But I will say, especially on the flare-up days, right? Something triggered me. Maybe I have gone down those rabbit holes, right? I'm re-exploring bad days of the past that I don't really need to, right? But I am. Whatever has caused that. What I find gets me closer to my spiritual self is it's really this opportunity of working with my mind and working with my heart, my soul, and differentiating between the two, and having this this experience of the CPTSD has helped me to lean into knowing the difference. And when my mind wants to control something, right? I feel like things are out of control, and sometimes I might need to repeat myself. Sometimes I might need more validation, whatever is happening as a symptom, right? It gives me an opportunity to then say, okay, that's your mind, Danielle, that's your mind, and you love your mind. Your mind's done many beautiful things for you, right? And so it's not about getting upset at myself either. It's just being able to discern what's my mind, calming my mind through my soul, through my heart, right? And even as I do this, people who know me see me with my hands on my heart a lot, right? And it helps. It helps. And because I've been able to exercise this regularly, I can oftentimes really understand, is this my mind? Is this my ego me? Is this a mental health thing? Or is this my soul talking? And I would consider having the opportunity to have those important conversations with myself on the regular to be an important learning experience of my mental health concern, if you will. Yeah.
So beautifully said. It's reminding me of a quote that I feel I learned in my trauma education is, it's not you, it's what happened to you.
Yeah.
So none of this is you. It's not you at your soul level, but it's you responding to what happened to you, right? And trying to feel safe in the world and trying to navigate a really complex world in and of itself, right? And so that's just reminding me of the importance of the discernment and the compassion, even for the parts that you might want to scream at, even for the parts of you that it's like, why is this coming up again?
Yes.
Right? To have that compassion for the fact that this is not you, it's not a choice. This is your mind coming in to try to protect you, actually, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to echo, it's not me, right? Because I would say everyone's journey is unique, and there's no right or wrong way to play this. And everyone needs to do what is perfect for them in the moment. But one of the reasons I feel I have been I'll call it a success through, my complex PTSD, as opposed to falling down some roads that many do, right? Alcoholism, drug use, right? Suicide, is I don't over identify with the distinction, right? I proudly talk about it, right? Which, I'm here doing. And I also proudly talk about many other things, right? And while I cherish this piece of me, I'm not all in, if that makes sense, right? I haven't fully attached myself to a label, to a definition, to a medical textbook. And all too often, and you can speak to this as a clinician, right? As a therapist yourself, I think it's important to give people that flexibility, right? Because oftentimes, especially now where, we have the power to Google everything, people kind of hear their one thing and then they believe that they are this one thing. And I've never believed that. I believe I have the power to heal. I have the power to claim my health, mental health, spiritual health, physical health. I can claim wholeness. I can always claim the power of living in the moment. And I want people to hang on to that. We can use science and we can use established frameworks and science to help form us. And we should also be using, that's why we're here today, right? Our soul-centered power as well. It's this combination of.
Yes. And the coming back to wholeness, the claiming the wholeness, just as you said that's exactly it. And it's circling back to when I was talking about the beginning of, the diagnosis of PTSD, right? And it comes from a place of understanding. Hopefully it comes from a place of validation, of knowing you're not alone, right? Of knowing that there is support out there that you can take, that is available to you, but it does not have to be any part of you at all, right? It doesn't have to be something you identify with fully, right? But maybe there are little aspects of the experience that you can bring forward and shine, right? So speaking of, tell me about the ways that you feel like you have used your experience for good.
Yeah. Especially in my work as a life coach, psychic, medium, it's just brought me a deeper understanding of those who are navigating something similar to me, right? Especially when I'm working with spirit and I'm doing a psychic reading or a mediumship reading. I can detect, I can understand in a flash, right, what that feels like, what they're going through, because I have that lived experience. And that's what being a psychic is all about, right, is being able to quickly work with spirit and the sitter and help them feel validated, help them feel understood, and then give them that higher power information. And because I've experienced that, I'm not trying to figure out what spirit trying to tell me, right? Like, what happened in their childhood. I'm not having to ask 20 questions before I can help. I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha, right? I understand this one from a lived experience and of course my own research as well, right? So that for sure is very helpful. And I think with any kind of a hard thing I've gone through, whether it's grief, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, for me, it just builds my compassion, right? For this wild and crazy, beautiful thing we call life. Like anytime something extra is added, I just find my heart getting bigger and bigger. I'm like, okay, here's another layer of love I didn't know I had for myself. Here's another layer of love I have for humans as a whole, right? And so that's pretty neat. And I think it's also helped to get the word out so others have that. I wouldn't even say power, because many aren't even at that power stage. They're walking around with wounds they might not even realize they have, right? And I've been able to talk about my experiences, and people be like, whoa, I didn't know there was a name, or I thought it was just me. And it's really important when I can do exactly what we're doing here today, Kate, because people are walking around with shame, thinking they're unique, right? Like, what is wrong with me, right? Why am I fill in the blank, whatever symptom they're coming up with, right? And letting them know they're not alone has probably been the biggest gift. I'll gladly take some pain if I can then transmute it into love and help people realize they're not alone.
It's amazing. Love that. Love that so much. And from a spiritual perspective, right? Of just understanding how hard it is to just be here sometimes, right? And no matter what, you're not alone. And it's a wild and crazy road, just like you said. And so knowing though that people like you who have had very hard things happen can grow and learn and find their soul and live a soul-centered life and shine and do beautiful work. You are a testament to that beauty, true beauty.
Thank you. Blush, blush.
What do you feel like are the parts of your journey looking back that you're most surprised about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm gonna say how automatic my healing is now compared to what it was in my 20s. So a lot of my healing now happens with just a quick little shift, as opposed to me having to try and try and try. Life was just really hard for me in my 20s. Everything and everyone felt like it was attacking me. If it was raining and I was driving at home, I'm gripping the steering wheel. I fear for my life. Like, everything's out of control. Like, I'm just, somebody gives me a piece of constructive feedback, they don't like me anymore, I'm losing my job, like, you name it, everything was big. Everything felt unsteady, unsafe. And I absolutely still have those moments, those days, right? But the difference is I don't let myself get as deep, right? I can understand, Danielle, this side of you's been triggered. This is going to pass. Give yourself some love, give yourself some compassion, and let's just kind of ride the wave, as opposed to believing that reality of I'm unsafe, I'm going to get hurt, I'm going to get fired. And now it's just easier for me to realize when it's that side of me triggered. And because I'm not fighting it, I need to fix myself. What's wrong with myself? I need to fix myself, right? That was just adding unnecessary fuel to a big, big fire. Yeah. Now, when I notice it, I talk to myself with self-love very naturally. Again, I don't even work on it. Like, Danielle, babe, I love you. Hang tight. This might be a crappy hour. Don't make any big decisions right now. Just like go for a walk. Like, I'm my best friend. And I didn't know how to do that in my 20s when I came out of the unhealthy living situation I was, right? So that's been a huge, huge shift.
That is incredible. And just as you're talking too, what's sticking out for me is the knowledge gained, right? And integrated. So it's like you've integrated all of these little snippets that you've gathered throughout your lifetime, and it sits with you in such a beautiful way so that you can grow and you can reconnect in an even higher, in a more present way than I feel like if that didn't happen, right? So just like you're saying, it's like because of these triggers, you have, like, I talk about my soul check-ins, right? But it's almost like you have these automatic reminders to check back in, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Kate, tell us from your perspective, those who want resources, that want I don't know, further exploration of this topic? Is there any people, places, websites that you can recommend?
I don't have a NAMI, so National Alliance of Mental Illness. Like we don't love the name, right? But NAMI is just the standard across the board for mental illness oriented resources. And they have a ton on trauma, on PTSD.
Right.
There are so much out there that I don't want to, get super, super nitpicky. But what I would say is go to what you feel most called around, right? Like let the journey take the steps on the journey, unfold the path in the same way you did, right? So if it's starting with NAMI, fantastic, but what calls to you? Like once you're on that website, where does that connect you to? What comes into your mind? Does Reiki come into your mind? Right? Does more holistic energy work come into mind to help your body find its ground and help it feel safe in the world, help it integrate all that it's been through? Is therapy the right choice for you, right? Is coaching the right choice to sort of step forward on your path in a soul-centered way, right? There's so many resources. And so my biggest piece of advice would be go to what you feels best, right? Your soul knows best.
I
Yeah.
agree. When it comes to my trauma journey, I really like sitting with a memoir as opposed to a self-help book. You know, getting the intimate eye into a lived experience helps me understand what someone went through, and I can see some similarities and I can understand some new things. I can explore without being told what to do. I am a big fan. Stephanie Fu recently came out with a memoir, maybe a year ago now, 2 years ago, called What My Bones Know. And that's all about her healing journey with C-PTSD. Viola Davis, and the name of her memoir right now is escaping me, but she had a lot of trauma growing up as well. And I received a lot of comfort just from hearing other stories. And I recommend that as an avenue other people explore too.
Beautiful. The other thing that just came is Oprah talks a lot.
So true.
I mean, and she's somebody, it's both, but she does a lot of work around that. And I know like a lot of the people she brings on, she has a podcast, so a lot of the people that she sort of surrounds herself with have also grown through hard experiences.
So true. Yeah.
Well, Danielle, anything else that you would like to talk about today? What else can you impart?
I feel complete. I want to say thank you to all those listening, whether it's live, whether it's the recording. Thank you. Thank you for holding space for me. Thank you for investing time and energy to either understand something new or take some time to lean in and get more honest, right, with yourself or what you might need to work on. Like whatever brought you here and kept you here, thank you. You healing is helping the world heal. And just want to remind those listening who might be feeling stuck or feeling trapped with any kind of mental illness, you are not alone. And there are so many people out here, including Kate, including me, that are always here for you and beautiful resources for you to help you along your journey. And so it is.
Thank you. So you can find more about Dr. Danielle at www.drdanielleclark.com and me, Kate Stacom, at www.katestacom.com. Look forward to connecting more. And thank you. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do we want to stay